So hello together. So we agreed that we will do our presentation in English. You wanted it, so first of all, please excuse my Bavarian English accent. It might be disturbing for some of you, but I'll try my best. So I'm working for Style for almost 10 years now and responsible for digital end-to-end journeys, focused with optimization. And I'm responsible for topics like experimentation, A/B testing, but also SEO, digital analytics. So really end-to-end to optimize KPIs for all digital channels. Today, I would like to tell you some insights. I would like to share some practices and also share my know-how, our know-how, how we set up our experimentation program. So experimentation. Can you deal with that expression, name, wording? Does anyone know what this is? Okay, some are nicking, but no one is raising his hand. That's fine. So we go into the details. And so let me start with some, theory first. There are two really important, let's call it, ingredients. So one is a winning team. And the other one is like a master plan for an experimentation life cycle. So as you can see here, I'm not the best PowerPoint drawer, so it's more a functional presentation. We invested a lot of time to set up the best team, and we started with 3 people with different roles and responsibilities. In the end, this is our current status quo. So we have a growth squad. We call it a growth squad. So the task and the responsibility of the growth squad is really the end-to-end experimentation life cycle. What this means, I will come in a second. So there are many roles in there, starting with the growth owner. So the growth owner itself is responsible for the whole program, for prioritization, for the topics, backlog, and also interacting with different stakeholders. And part of the team are also 2 conversion rate optimizer, we have data analysts, and we have devs, which might be unusual to some of the companies. So this was basically one of the most important improvements, including devs into the growth squad. Then also colleagues from UX, UI, and an agile coach. So as I said, we tested around, we tried many setups, many way of workings, and this is where we are today, and it's working quite good for us. I don't say this is the right way. So every company has different needs, every topic has different needs, but this is working for Sky, and this is where we stick to today. Then you need the master plan, I call it. So this is our experimentation life cycle. So it's divided into 3 phases, basically. So it starts with the ideation phase, and the ideation phase is all about creating ideas to test, to evaluate. So it's about pulling together data, validating test ideas, and the best output of this phase is basically a test hypothesis and test idea, which is validated, backed up by data. Once you're there, you're going into the create phase. So this is actually where you run a test, an A/B test. And the test is running for a certain period of time, and then you have some results. And I have to say, every result is a good result. There's nothing such a bad result, so you can learn from every test. And once you have your results, you're coming into the measurement phase, so the last phase, and there you need to decide what to do with the results. So do you do another test iteration? Do you request a functionality, a new capability? Or is this something you can do with existing capabilities, like changing a design of a page, different textings, wordings, different layouts? And as I said, the growth team, main focus to deal with this experimentation lifecycle. Let's go a little bit more into detail regarding the experimentation lifecycle. So, as I said, in my opinion, this is the most critical phase. And in this step, you can really determine how successful your test will be. In the end, there are a couple of rules you need to consider. So no gut feeling. Therefore, it's really important that you do a validation of your test ideas. So there are many ways how you can validate test ideas. So of course, look into your data, analytics data, web analytics data, but not only into web analytics data. So there are other tools. I come to that in a minute. And then, as I said, the goal of this phase is to have a validated test hypothesis, which then goes into the backlog. I also wanted to share a couple of tools with you we are using in this phase. The first one is like for the idea management. I don't know how many of you are working with Excel, PowerPoints, Word documents, and other tools. That's fine when you start. But if you're running like 200 to 300 experiments a year, you need other functionalities, capabilities, and tools. So we're using the Optimizely program management tool and also Jira. But there are other tools in the market as well. Just check it out, like Asana, Trello, Basecamp. So we tried it out, and as I said, for us, this combination is working the best. And here it's about really collecting the ideas, documenting it, and creating your own backlog of ideas. Then it's about scoring. As I said, capacities are really low. You can't test limitless. I come to that later as well. So you really need to think about what I am going to test as the next test. So what we do is we created some kind of idea scoring. And again, I don't say this is the perfect way, but this works out for us quite good. So we're looking at the impact. So what kind of impact are we expecting with the next experiment? Meaning, okay, we're testing the order entry for a certain group of prospects. We know how many traffic we have. We know conversion rates. So if you're doing some scenarios, so if I have an uplift of 2%, this might result in X amount of conversions. So this is one of the criteria. Then the other one is the confidence, as I said. So do nothing out of gut feeling, so try to validate your ideas. And here we give also a scoring for the confidence. So how confident are we that this test or this idea will come to a result? Also very important, the effort. As I said, you don't have limitless resources, team members, devs. And also here we're looking at how much effort is a test going to be. And also, I call it the laugh, but it's more the strategic fit. So how does it fit into the overall strategy of your company? And based off that, we do an idea scoring and creating our backlog. Then validation. As I said, this is really one of the most critical steps in your whole experimentation program before you even start thinking about testing. So web analytics is one of the resources, but there are many more. So what we also do is validate through qualitative data as well. So we tried out user remote tests. It's working quite good for us. We did it with rapid user tests, but there are other tools out in the market which can do the same. Surveys is a quite important tool for us. So here we're using Hotjar as a tool, but as I said, there are other tools in the market. So basically capturing qualitative data from real users to validate ideas beforehand. I think you've seen that many times as well, like heat maps. So again, typical tools, Hotjar, mouse flow. And here again, we're looking at click maps, scroll maps, move maps. This gives you also a good idea of what kind of expectations people have, what they do on the website before really start testing. And as I said, there are many other resources which you should use in your company. So with Sky, for example, we have a Sky community where we also get feedback from real customers. We have a chat on the website, so people are giving really feedback in the chat, not only in the service chat, but we also have a chat for prospects, for example. And here you get really valuable feedback like, okay, I couldn't find Game of Thrones on your website. Is this really part of the package? Or I'm stuck in the order process in step 3. Can you help out with that? So really try to use other data than web analytics data to validate your ideas. And as I said, the goal of this phase should be, okay, I'm done with my validation, and then now I have my proper test hypothesis and my test idea validated by data. Then we're coming to the next phase. I call it the creation phase. So as I said, this is really about the testing itself, the A/B testing itself. But before you go to that, so we talked about idea management, about backlogs. Now you have a backlog of 300 ideas. What do I do now? We have an idea scoring. So there are several possibilities you can deal with that. What we're using is this kind of a matrix. So it works out. It's not really fancy, but it's very powerful in my point of view. So we have the impact, we have the effort, and based on that, we are mapping our test ideas, our test hypothesis, and it could look like that in the end. And then you go ahead and then you select the test which you want to test as the next one. Now you have a test, okay? And then you want to test this as an A/B test. We at Sky, we're using Optimizely as a testing tools, but again, there are really many tools out in the market like Optimize, App Testy, Visual Website Optimizer, and so on and so on. So look for the best tool for you. Most of the time, it's a matter of pricing, of course, so there's a huge range of pricings, and I think you really need to look at the traffic volumes, at the conversion levels, and then really decide what kind of tool you want to use for your A/B testing. If you look at the experiment itself, so I have my test idea now, the test hypothesis. Most of the time, it's one sentence, right? So backed up by a lot of data. So the first step before you actually test it is, the concept of the test. So you're creating the UX, the UI, test KPIs. So what is my main test KPIs? As I said, no testing with gut feeling. You really need a quite good idea which KPIs you want to test and you want to influence. And then you code the test. So this is why you need the devs. In this case, we're doing it in Optimizely. Then you have a QA phase. So if you're testing, for example, in the order process, this is really the heart of the website. If you mess it up, it's not good. So if you have errors in there, or if you have a buggy test, it might impact your conversions and your KPIs. And then in the end, you launch the test, and then it's running. You're closely monitoring it. What we always do is we pack every required KPI and data for one test in one slide. And this is how it looks like for us. I also have an example with us so that you can imagine what I mean with all the theory. So in this case, we have a problem, right? As a user, I don't understand the difference of the Netflix plans. So we as Sky, we also sell Netflix plans. Some of you might know, others not. But as part of the order process, you can also add Netflix into your plan. So what is the solution? So this is the test hypothesis. And what is the idea for that? What are the test metrics? So there might be primary KPIs, but also a lot of secondary KPIs which we track. In this case, there are two KPIs which we monitored. So first of all, our sales conversion rate. In the end, we don't want to mess up our overall conversion by displaying other parts of the order process too aggressively. And the second one, of course, is the number of Netflix upsells, the conversion rate of Netflix upsells. Then you have a test audience. So meaning who should see the test? This is also very important. All users different viewports, meaning different devices. You could really drill this down to a micro level, but in the end, you need to find the balance, right, between the audience and the expected result. So the more you drill down, the less traffic and conversions you have as a result of the testing, and you might run into danger that you don't get any valid results. So in the end, you need traffic, you need conversions, and then you get some kind of a result. So this is also something you really need to think about. Then, how does the test variation look like? So you always have a default version, meaning this is what we have today. And then you might have 1, 2, 3, 4, X amount of challenges. In this case, we have 2 challenges. I come to that into a detail. And then last but not least, what kind of journeys are you going to test? So in this case, it's our order process. You might have some inclusions, exclusions as well. And as I said, we try to summarize everything into a one-pager. It doesn't look too complicated, but it really reflects all required details you need for the testing itself. This is the test. And in this case, let me see where my laser pointer is. So this is what we had before, right? This was our original version. So in the end, it's called our Entertainment Plus packet. And part of the Entertainment Plus packet is also Netflix. So we had a conversion rate. We were not too satisfied with the Netflix upsells. Therefore, we said, okay, let's try out different things. So one of the ideas was, okay, let's have a more extended look and view, give more information. Also, one of the important things you can see here, I just pointed, do you already have Netflix? So even if you have Netflix, you can get this package. And this was also one of the feedbacks of the qualitative testing. So a lot of users, they were hesitant to book this because they already have a Netflix account. And then there's also a different look and feel, which is more aggressive with a layer. So this was our test layout, and this is what we've tested basically. And now the question into the round. What do you think, which version won? So is it more like the extended one, or is it more the aggressive one with the layer which pops up and then you get all the informations? What do you think? So who's for version 1? Any ideas? Just one? Okay. Who's for version 2, the aggressive one? Okay. And this is why you should really test and have no gut feeling, because it's the first version. So this one basically generated also an overall sales uplift, but this was not the main target of the test. So we tracked these KPIs, and we just wanted to make sure that we don't have a negative impact. In this case, we also had a positive impact, which is really great. But the main purpose of the test was the second KPI, the Netflix upsells. And with this version, we managed really to get a 42% uplift of Netflix upsells, which is really a great result. But to tell you the truth, it's not always like that you get huge amounts of uplifts. So most of the time, a lot of the times you don't get any results. So it's really, okay, no uplift, or the data is not enough, you don't have enough conversions. But as I said, some of your tests might end up with huge amounts of uplift and others with minimal amount of uplifts. Therefore, it's really important to look into the data, which is like the last part. So you have your test result, right? What do you do with it? So there are many ways, and it depends basically on the setup of your company, of your website, on the architecture and the capabilities. So is this something you can implement without any IT effort, with a CMS or other capabilities? Great, go ahead and do it. But most of the time, you might need some IT in order to implement this, and then it starts with, we need to put it into the backlog, and it costs that amount. There are other projects which are much more important, and there might be the cases that it takes weeks, even months after you have the test version implemented. If this is the case, what you can do is just use your testing tool and deliver the winning version for 100% of the audience. So this is like a quick win. And this is also the reason why we included devs into our growth squad. So the beauty of this is you can immediately implement the winning ideas. And this is really something you should think about. And as I said, this was like the most critical step forward and one of the success factors for the whole experimentation program. There might be cases that the test results is not positive. Then you might think about iterations and do everything from scratch, maybe with other versions. Or the result was really, really bad and you just bin the idea and take the next one from your backlog. That's it. So I hope I could give you some inspiration, some ideas, some tools which you might use. I'm also here for the conference, so if you have questions now, please raise your questions. I'll try to answer it. If you want to chat, I'm here. Just grab me, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I had a question about the ideation. I saw your teams very cross-functional.
Yes.
Nice. You have conversion rate optimizers in the team that probably look into data, look into trends and stuff. But you also have UX and you have UI designers, you have developers. So how do you kick off the ideation phase? Which role brings the initiative and how do those roles play together? That's what I'm interested in.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the question, and that's really a good question. So it depends is the answer. I can tell you how we deal with that. So in the end, it depends where you get your test ideas, right? So it can come up from the team, but there are other sources as well. It could be management. So this is also one of the good things we achieved. The management within Sky is now aware that we can do such fancy stuff. But it could be other departments as well, like business areas, the sales area. They come to you and say, hey guys, we have this offer in 3 months and we're not sure if this is the right way. Could we do a pre-test with a small audience? And in the end, the CROs, the conversion rate optimizers, they're like the interface to all stakeholders, let's call it like that. And they're collecting the ideas, they're discussing the ideas, they're validating ideas with business areas, departments. But there are other resources as well. It could be an expert review from outside. It could be anything you've seen at a conference, for example. Oh, that's a really good idea. Let's put this into our backlog. So therefore, it's different where you collect your ideas. When I look at our backlog, I would say around 30% of the test ideas are coming from the team. The rest is coming from outside. And the CROs, they're like the interface to all areas to discuss, to validate, and to prioritize. I hope this answers the question.
You mentioned about Optimizely for the create phase. Could you please elaborate on that? That means, are you using Optimizely's UI phases or something like that for the designing, or is it more towards what?
So again, it depends on the type of the test. So our testing tool is Optimizely, right? You can code test variations directly in Optimizely, but it depends on the type of the test. You could also do like the pages with their own capabilities and use Optimizely like as the tool on top of that to track KPIs, to validate KPIs. But in the end, it's our one tool, and you have several possibilities how you use it. So you could code the tests within Optimizely, so there's an editor in that. But in the end, you need, well, some resources with some coding experience in order to do it, but not necessarily. So if you're starting like very fresh with this topic, you could do easy stuff on your own. It's like a, how do you call it? What you see is what you get editor. So it depends on where your maturity level is in terms of experimentation.
You mentioned in the validation process that you're doing an analytics deep dive, but that you're also doing a lot of qualitative research. Can you explain a little bit more about that and what the proportion would be in between qualitative and quantitative, and what kind of methods you're using there?
Yeah. So, very good question, thank you. So, again, it depends on the effort, right? So, we are starting with the low-hanging fruits, basically. So, the areas of data I've showed you, it's already there in existence. So, we try to use what we have, like with prior one. It's chat feedback, feedback from customer service, from the community, web analytics data. If you require something on top, we do surveys on the website, but really not very complicated things. So it's more like quick and dirty to grasp like feelings from the audience. And what we also do is remote user tests, which I pretty much like because it's easy to handle. You don't need to, well, the effort to set up a remote user test is quite low. So you just need to think, how many people do I want? What kind of audience do I need? And what kind of questions do I want to ask? And it's tracked and video shoot, and you get the results in the end. It's quite effective. We don't do any research labs because not for this topic. Of course, Sky is doing some research labs for other topics, but not for the experimentation because it's very expensive. It needs a lot of preparation. You need the experts for that. And this is the reason why we try to keep it as efficient as possible.
So how are you making sure that your results are significant if you have some uptake in the conversion lift that is not so big and you have spent already a lot of money? Yeah. How can you then explain that this test and this result is really that we wanted to achieve?
Yeah. So this is something we're doing in the validation phase, right? So if you have the test idea, we try to validate with data, and then we look at the journeys, we look at how much traffic do we expect? What is the current conversion? And is the traffic and the conversion rate enough to get a kind of a result, right? So as a result of the validation process, there might be the case the audience is really too, how can I say it, too micro. So it's one landing page with not a lot of traffic, and you see that, right, when trying to validate. And then you can say from the scratch, from the beginning, okay, this is not going to work out. But there are also tools in the market which you can use, and you need to input some variables like this is my current traffic, this is my current conversion rate, and this is, and then you get as a feedback, okay, you need X amount of days and X amount of traffic and conversions to get a proper result. So I can recommend this as well when you're starting like from scratch. But as I said, part of the team is also an analytics person, and she's doing like all the calculation stuff and trying to make sure that we will have a proper result in the end.